Chapter 9. The Lau brothers redeem a friend. Second Captain Liu assumes a false name to intimidate boatmen. The two Lau brothers were strolling towards the village when a man rounded the corner of a house and kowtowed to them. They hastily raised him up. "Who are you?" they asked. "We don't recollect knowing you." "Don't you gentlemen remember your humble servant?" "Your face is familiar, but your name has slipped our memory." "I am Chao San. My father Chao Chi-fu used to look after your ancestral graves." "In that case, what are you doing here?" they asked in surprise. "After all you gentlemen left for the capital," he told them, "my father looked after the graves and did so well that he was able to buy some nearby fields. Then, because our house was too small, we brought another in the east end of the village, leaving the old house to my uncle. Later, some of my brothers married, and that new house in the east quarter was big enough for my two older brothers and their wives only. But a sister of mine who married a fellow in Newmarket is a widow now. She invited my father and mother here, and I came with them. So that's it. Have there been people trampling on our family grave mounds? Who would dare? Whenever magistrates and prefects pass by, they go in to pay their respects. Not a blade of grass has been touched. Where are your parents now?" "They live at the end of the market in my sister's house, only a few steps from here. My father often speaks of your goodness to him and wishes he could see you gentlemen again. We frequently wonder what became of old Chao Chi-fu," said Lao Feng to his younger brother. "If it's not far, why not go to see him?" "Very well," agreed Lao Chan. They took Chao San back with them to the bank and told their attendants to order the boatmen to wait. Then, with Chao San leading the way, they went straight to the end of the market to a 7 or 8 roomed house with its double-wicket gate ajar. "Dad," shouted Chao San, "the younger masters are here." "Who's that?" called Chao Chi-fu. He hobbled out leaning on a stick. At the sight of the two brothers he was overjoyed, and following them inside, put down his stick so that he could kneel to them. The two brothers hastily stopped him. "An old man like you need not stand upon ceremony," they said. They made him sit down with them. Chao San brought in tea, which the old man offered to them himself. "We meant to visit our ancestors' graves, to sweep their tombs as soon as we reached home," said Lao Feng as they were drinking. "We expected to see you then, but since we made a detour to Chie Sing to visit Prefect Chu, we happened to pass this way, and how surprised we were to run into your son and learn that you were here. So we meet again after more than 10 years. You are looking fitter than ever, and we hear that 2 of your sons are married, and you now have several grandchildren. Is your wife here too?" Even as they spoke, an old woman with white hair and white eyebrows came out to greet them. The two brothers returned her greeting. "Go in quickly," Chao Chi-fu told her, "and bid your daughter prepare a meal for the 2 gentlemen." When the old woman had gone, he went on. "My wife and I shall never forget your father's kindness and yours. My old woman burns a stick of incense every day under the eaves to pray that you gentlemen will become ministers too. Your elder brother is already a high official, isn't he, with a big seat and chair? We have both been very far away from home so long that we have done nothing for you," said Lao Chan. "Yet you talk like this, making us feel quite embarrassed." "You have been looking after our family graves for many years," put in Lao Feng. "It is we who should be grateful." "Why do you speak like this?" "Prefect Chu has retired," said Chao. "What a pity that his son died. Has his grandson grown up yet?" "He is 17 this year," replied Lao Feng, "and very intelligent." Chao San brought in food. Chicken, fish, duck, and pork, neatly served up with several kinds of vegetables. When he had spread the table, he invited the brothers to eat. But they had to drag Chao Chi-fu to the table by main force before they could prevail on him to sit down with them. "You gentlemen can't be used to this weak country wine," said the old man as he was filling up their cups. "Why, this wine has body all right," said Lao Chan. "I don't know what the world's coming to," Chao went on. "Things aren't what they used to be. Even rice wine is poor stuff nowadays. My father used to say that in the good old days of Emperor Hung Wu, from 2 pecks of rice you could brew 20 pints of wine. But later, when Emperor Young Lo usurped the throne, everything changed, and 2 pecks would yield only 15 or 16 pints. Take this wine. I added a little water as I could, but it's still weak and tasteless." "We are not heavy drinkers," replied Lao Feng. "This is good enough. The truth is, gentlemen, The truth is, gentlemen, I am growing old and useless, said Chow, now in his cups. That if heaven takes pity on me and lets my children live to see times like those under Emperor Hung Wu, I shall die content. Lao Chan looked at his elder brother and laughed. I've heard say, went on the old man, that our dynasty would have been perfect as the Chow dynasty during Confucius's time, if Emperor Young Lo hadn't seized the throne and ruined everything. Is this true? Lao Feng laughed. Where did a good old countryman like you hear this? He asked. Who told you? I didn't know this before, to be sure, but the manager of the salt shop here used to come to our threshing floor in his spare time, or to sit with me under the shade of the willows. It was he who told me this. The Lao brothers were surprised. What is the name of this gentleman? They asked. He's Mr. Yang, a decent sort and a great teacher. He always kept a book up his sleeve, and whenever he sat down would start reading. He used to stroll over here a good deal after meals, but we shan't be seeing him any more now. Where is he gone? I don't know what the world's coming to. Although Mr. Yang was born a tradesman, he had no heed for figures. When he wasn't strolling about outside, he would sit reading behind a screen in his shop, leaving all the business to his assistant. Everyone called him Mr. Looney. The shop owner made him a manager because of his honesty. But when he heard what a fool the man was, he came to the shop to look into the accounts and found 700 taels of silver missing. Mr. Yang had no idea where the money had gone, but refused to admit that he was in the wrong, just spouting phrases out of some book to the proprietor and waving his arms indignantly. The shop owner was angry and took the case to the teaching district yamen. And when the district magistrate saw that this had to do with the salt trade, he immediately complied with the request and ordered Mr. Yang to be thrown in gaol until he could make good the deficit. And in gaol he has now been for pretty well a year and a half. Has he no property to pay up with? Asked Lao Feng. If he had, it would be all right, answered Chow. But his family lives more than a mile out of this village, and his 2 sons are idiots. They've neither learned a trade nor studied. They just live on the old man. How can he pay? Brother, exclaimed Lao Chan, to think that this poor out-of-the-way place should produce such a scholar, yet he should be victimized as a miser. Yet he should be victimized by a miser. Isn't it enough to make your blood boil? Can't we find a way to help him? He hasn't broken the law, he has only run into debt, said Lao Feng. All we need to do is find out the details of the case in the city and clear his debt for him. There shouldn't be any difficulty. Excellent, approved Lao Chan. As soon as we get home tomorrow, we'll see to it. Amitabha Buddha, exclaimed Chow. How eager you 2 gentlemen are to do good. Heaven only knows how many poor people you have helped in the past. And if you get Mr. Yang out of gaol, every single villager here will be moved. Don't talk about this in the village yet, Chifu, said Lao Feng. Wait till we see what can be done. That's right, agreed Lao Chan. If you say something before we are sure of success, it won't be good. By now they had drunk enough wine and the rice was served. When the meal was at an end, it was time for the Lao brothers to go back to the boat. Chow Chi Fu, leaning on a stick, escorted them to the bank. I wish you a good journey, he said. I'll come to the city later to pay my respects. He told his son, who was carrying a bottle of wine and some dishes and food, to put them on board for the gentleman's supper. Only when the boat cast off did he turn back. Once home, the 2 brothers had to see to some business and entertain the guest for several days. This done, they sent one of their stewards, Tian Chu, and ordered him to go to the district yamen to find out the name of the man arrested in Newmarket salt shop, how much money he owed, and whether he were a scholar or not. Xian did as he was told. One of the yamen secretaries was a sworn brother of his, and when Xian approached him with these questions, the secretary immediately copied out the required information from the files. Xian took his report back to the 2 brothers, who read, The owner of Kong Yu Chi salt shop in Newmarket charged the manager, Yang Chi Chung, with neglecting his work for many years and devoting his time to pleasure. He claimed that Yang's appropriation of more than 700 taels of silver was tantamount to embezzling tax money. The plaintiff has requested that Yang be compelled to pay up, but since he is a salaried licentiate, we cannot proceed, and he must be deprived of his rank before he can be condemned. He's now in gaol pending a decision on his case from the provincial governor. How ridiculous, exclaimed Lao Chan. A salaried licentiate is a scholar. All he has done is to use some money belonging to a salt merchant. yet they want to deprive him of his rank and penalize him. Did you ever hear of anything so unreasonable? Did you find out if there was any other trouble? Asked Lao Feng. I made inquiries, said Xian, but there isn't any. In that case, take 750 taels from the sum that fellow from Huang family dike paid the other day to redeem his fields, and pay them into the district treasury for Mr. Yang. After that, take our cards to the magistrate and tell him that this licentiate Yang is a friend of your master's, so that the magistrate will release him. Use your name as a guarantor and look sharp. Don't lose any time, Si Shui, urged Lao Chan. And when Licentiate Yang comes out of prison, don't say anything to him. He will come without any prompting to see us. Xian assented and made off. He took 20 taels of silver only. However, when he presented to the Yamen secretary, can't we think of some way to settle Licentiate Yang's case? He asked. Since you have brought cards from the minister's house, what difficulty can there be? The secretary straightway sent the following memorandum to the magistrate. This licentiate Yang is connected with the Lao family, and 2 of the Lao gentlemen have sent in their cards and instructed their stewards to act as guarantor. They want to know, too, on what grounds the scholar was arrested, since this is not a case of embezzlement or corruption. Your Excellency is requested to give the matter your consideration. This message from the Lao family threw the magistrate into a panic, but he could not give this as an answer to the salt merchant. Calling in the secretary, he bade him appropriate some of the salt tax to pay the merchant, accepting Xian Chu's offer to act as guarantor, and release Licentiate Yang immediately. There was no need to bring in a verdict. Xian Chue, who had pocketed over 700 taels of silver, reported that Licentiate Yang had been released, and the 2 Lao brothers naturally expected that he would come to express his gratitude. Yang, however, did not know the reason for his release. When he asked the runners outside the Yamen, all they could tell him was, "A man by the name of Xian Chue acted as guarantor for you." I have never known anyone called Xian, thought Yang. After puzzling over the question for some time, he decided not to trouble about it any more. The important thing was that he was free and could go home to his books. He was welcomed home by his wife, who could scarcely believe their good fortune. His 2 idiot sons spent every day gambling in the market and did not come home till midnight. So there was only a deaf, half-witted crone to make the fire, cook, and look after the house. The next day, Licentiate Yang walked around the village to look up his old acquaintances. But as Chao Chi-fu had gone to stay with his sickened son, whose wife had just been brought to bed of a son, Yang did not see him. How could he possibly guess that the Lao brothers had championed his cause? When over a month had passed, the Lao brothers could not help feeling somewhat astonished. However, they called to mind the story of Yue Chi-fu, and were convinced that the Licentiate Yang must be a great scholar of the same type. In fact, this only increased their respect for him. Mr. Yang has still not appeared to thank us, remarked Lao Feng one day to Lao Chan. He must be a remarkable man. If we admire him, said Lao Shan, it stands to reason that we should call on him. Isn't it rather pity to wait for him to come and thank us? I agree, but you know the saying. When your grace does good, your grace should forget. If we call on him, won't it look as if we want to bring this business up? We won't mention it. What could be more natural than to call on someone whose reputation has aroused in you a desire to make his acquaintance? Why should we let this stand in the way of getting to know him? You are absolutely right, agreed Lao Feng. We must set out by a boat the day before, so that we can reach his house early and spend a whole day there. They had a small boat and set out that same afternoon without attendants, and had soon covered several dozen miles. It was late autumn, when days were short and nights long, and the river glimmered in the moonlight. As their boatmen rowed along by the light of the moon. The river was crowded with vessels loaded with rice for different landlord families. But since their craft was small, they could slip past the side of the larger boats. Towards midnight, the 2 brothers were lying down to sleep when they heard shouts and blows. Their boat was carrying no lights, and the cabin doors were closed. But looking through a crack, Lao Chen saw a big vessel, brightly lit with 2 great lanterns, one of which bore the inscription, "The Prime Minister's House," and the other, "Commissioner of Transmission." On the deck of this large vessel stood several attendants looking as savage as tigers and wolves, who were lashing out with whips at all the boats in their way. Lao Chan gave a start. "Brother," he whispered, "take a look at this." Lao Feng did so. They exclaimed, "These men are none of ours." By this time the large vessel had overtaken them, and the men on them began to whip the boatmen of the brothers' small boat. "It's a public waterway," protested one of the boatmen. "Nobody's stopping you. Why get tough and beat people?" "Fool," shouted the bullies. "Use your silly eyes to look at the names on the lanterns. See whose boat this is?" "Your lantern says, 'The Prime Minister's house.' Which Prime Minister is this?" "You perishing idiot. Are there two Prime Ministers in Huqiao? It's Prime Minister Lao, of course." "All right, but which of the Lao gentlemen does your boat belong to?" "This is Mr. Lao Feng's boat, loaded with rice, as everybody knows." "Any more of your lip, you dog, and we'll tie you up and ask Mr. Lao to send you to the district yamen tomorrow for a good beating." "Mr. Lao is on my boat. Can you produce his double?" The two brothers were chuckling to themselves when the boatman opened the cabin door and asked Lao Feng to step on deck where the bullies could see him. He obligingly stepped to the prow. The moon had not yet set, so the light of the moon and the lantern on the other boats illumined him clearly. "To which branch of my family do you belong?" he asked. The sight of Lao Feng threw the impostor into a panic, and they flung themselves on their knees. "Our master doesn't actually belong to your family, sir," they said. "He is Mr. Liu, who used to be second captain. He collected this rice from his land and, thinking the river might be crowded, made bold to borrow your family's official insignia. Little did we think that we would bump into your boat, sir. We have done very wrong." "Although your master is no relative of mine, he is from the same district," said Lao. "I don't mind if he borrows my name and lanterns, but I cannot have you forcing your way along the river and beating people like this, because by claiming to belong to my house you are spoiling my reputation. You know very well that none of our household would dare do such a thing. Get up, all of you. When you go back to your master, you need not tell them how you met me. But see that this doesn't happen again. Don't be afraid. I am not going to hold this against you." Promising to obey him and thanking him for his generosity, the captain's attendants scrambled to their feet, hastily extinguishing the two big lanterns and moored by the side of the river. On Lao Feng's return to the cabin, the two brothers had a good laugh. "You shouldn't have told them Mr. Lao was on board, or asked him to show himself." And Sid Lao chanted the boatman, "It was too bad of you to spoil their fun." "If I hadn't told them," retorted the boatman, "they would have smashed up my boat, the savages. Now they've been showing up." Then the two brothers undressed and went to sleep, while the two boatmen rowed on through the night. By dawn they reached Newmarket. When the brothers had washed their faces, drunk some tea, and eaten some pastries, they ordered the boatman to wait for them and went ashore. Walking to Lao Chifu's daughter's house at the end of the market, they knocked at the gate. And when they found that old Chow and his wife had gone to visit their son, they would not sit down, though Chow's daughter asked them in to drink tea. Leaving the market, they walked down the main road for over a mile until they saw a woodcutter carrying faggots. "Where does Licentiate Yang live?" they asked. "See that patch of red?" The woodcutter pointed into the distance. "That's just behind his house. This path will take you there." Thanking him, they took the path he had pointed out through the thickets and brambles till they came to a hamlet with only 4 or 5 thatched cottages. Behind one of these cottages were 2 great maple trees whose leaves had turned red since the frost. Realizing that this must be Yang's house, they followed another path to his front gate. Before the house was a brook, and over it a tiny bridge. As the brothers crossed the bridge, they saw that the double gate was closed. At their arrival, a dog began to bark. Lao Feng knocked at the gate and kept on knocking until an old crone came out, her clothes all tattered and torn. The brothers stepped forward. "Is this Mr. Yang's house?" they asked. They had to repeat the question before she nodded and answered, "Yes. Where are you from?" "Our name is Lao and we live in the city. We came to pay our respects to Mr. Yang." The old woman was hard of hearing. "Did you say Liu?" they asked. "No, not Liu, but Lao. Just tell your master that we're from the minister's house and he will understand." "Master isn't home. He went yesterday to watch the fishing and he hasn't come back yet. If you have something to say to him, come back some other day." Thereupon, not realizing that she ought to invite him in to have some tea, she went inside, closing the door behind her. The brothers stood there in dismay for some time. There was nothing for it, however, but to cross the bridge and go back to the city by the way they had come. Yang Chi-chung did not get home till evening. This morning 2 men called Liu or something came from the city to see you, the old servant told him. Said they live in some monastery. What did you say to them? I told them master isn't home. Come again another day. What Liu could this be? Wondered Yang. Then he remembered that name of the runner who had arrested him when the salt merchant took the case to court with Liu. Now the fellow must be coming to demand money. You old never-dying idiot, he roared. When people like that ask for me, just say I'm not home. Why tell them to come back again, good for nothing? The old woman answered back indignantly, whereupon Yang lost his temper, slapped her face, and kicked her. After that, afraid that the runner would return, he took to going out early every morning and wandering about till evening. The Lau brothers, however, were not yet satisfied, and a few days later they hired another boat to take them to Newmarket. As before, they walked to Yang's door and knocked. When the old crone opened the door and saw they were back again, she flew into a rage. Master is not at home, she said angrily. Why do you keep coming? Did you tell him the other day that we were from Minister Lau's family? Did I tell him? Because of you I got kicked and beaten. Why are you back again? Master isn't at home and he won't be back for some days. I've no time to waste talking. I've got to light the fire to cook dinner. After giving them a chance to speak, she slammed the door and went back inside. And when they knocked again, she paid no attention. Completely at a loss, the brothers did not know whether to laugh or be angry. Then after standing there for a little while, they decided it was no use creating a disturbance, and went back to the river. Their boat had gone several miles when they met another boat loaded with water chestnuts, manned by a small boy, who as he came up to them, held on to their cabin window. Will you buy water chestnuts? He called. Well, the boatman made his boat fast to the boys, and was weighing out the water chestnuts. The brothers asked from the window, Where do you live? In Newmarket, said the lad. Do you know a Mr. Yang Chi-chung who lives there? Asked Lao Chan. Of course I do. He's a very kind old gentleman. The other day he took my boat to see the opera in the next village, and a piece of paper with a writing on it dropped from his sleeve. Where is it? Asked Lao Feng. Here in the boat. May we have a look at it? The boy handed it to them. When the boatman had paid him for the water chestnuts, he rode away. The boy handed it to them. When the boatman had paid for the water chestnuts, he rode away. The Lau brothers unfolded the white sheet of paper and read the following lines. I did not do anything wrong. Because I have studied old books, I have come through bitter frost and blazing heat. And now the spring breeze plays on my thatched hut. Yang's name was now signed beneath. They were most impressed. How sublime, they exclaimed. What an admirable character. But how unlucky we are now in our attempts to meet him. It was a bright day, although there was a nip in the air, and Lao Chan was sitting in the stern enjoying the view when a junk overtook them. Please heave to, Mr. Lau, someone hailed him. Our master is here. When they had come alongside to the junk, the stranger jumped aboard and kowtowed to Lao Chan. Then, catching a glimpse of the cabin, he said, So the other master is here too. But to know who the gentleman in the large boat was, you must read the chapter which follows.